Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Todd Klindt's SharePoint podcast number 284, recorded live on this momentous Pi Day, Monday, March 14th, 2016. I guarantee you will all remember where you were on Pi Day of 2016, and we will come back to that later. I'm your host, Mr. Pi Day. I was working on a new nickname, a new social thing. I was going to refer to myself as Mr. Hustle, but then I noticed that Pavel in the chat room has already claimed the moniker of Mr. Hustle. So I cannot be Mr. Hustle, but I can still be Todd Klindt. I can still be your host for the podcast for the next 30 minutes or so. The folks that make this all possible, and we're going to be talking about them some more the rest of the podcast, the folks at Rackspace, and you can find out about all the cool SharePoint things we do at Rackspace at sharepoint.rackspace.com. So go ahead, fire up your favorite browser. I don't care which one it is. I don't judge. I use them all in various machines. Looking at me right now, I have all the important web browsers: Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox. We'll even throw Edge in there. I got them all. So whatever browser you want to, sharepoint.rackspace.com. And then because we do other Microsoft things, there are many Microsoft products, not all lesser than SharePoint, but they don't quite have the same shine that SharePoint does. We do other Microsoft things, and you can find out about those at www.rackspace.com/Microsoft, and that's all of the other things that we do. And then while you're out there cruising the internet, Trevor Seward sent me a hysterical picture of a panda knocking another panda off of a tree. There's just something about those pandas. Everything they do is funny. But if you're not done, or if you're done watching funny panda videos and funny cat videos, go out to toddklindt.com, toddklindt.com/blog, toddklindt.com/netcast. There's just something there for everybody at toddklindt.com. And you can also hit me up on Twitter at Todd Klindt. I'm on LinkedIn. I think Todd Klindt. I'm incredibly imaginative with my names. You can email me, todd.klindt@rackspace.com. All the fun things out there on the internet. But we've got a lot to talk about, so I'm dawdling. Let's not dawdle anymore. Production notes, not a lot to do. Everything's gone out pretty smoothly the last few weeks. Big news, though, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But next week, March 21st, set your calendars. Put this down in your calendars right now. I should blog this, right? Why do I not blog this? March 21st, right now, 168 hours from this minute right now. In the chat room, he's kind of easing himself into it. Tony Francola from the folks that bring you SP.kit. He's going to be here live on the show. So he's sitting in here with the hooligans for a week to kind of find out what the environment's like. So hooligans, treat him well. He's going to be royalty next week when we bring him on. But Tony Francola of SP.kit fame is going to be on. There's a new version of SP.kit out, and I brought Tony in to have him tell you all about it. I'm a big fan of SP.kit, and I think we need to see what that's about. And I've mentioned, for the last year and a half, as I've threatened to move this podcast, and actually did it a couple of months ago, I mentioned that one of the reasons that I wanted to do it was so that I could bring in more European guests, because this was an obscene time over in Europe. Sometime Wednesday morning, it was so late for those guys. Tony was one of those people. There was a list of 3 or 4 people from Europe that I wanted to bring in. Tony was on that list. So I'm actually now next week going to be able to see the fruits of my labor, have the podcast 4.5 hours early, and get Tony on, so that it's all coming together. My grand plan over the last 18, 20 months. Next week, you get to see it all. So make sure and tune in. It'll be 4 p.m. Central. Don't let the time zone thing throw you off. 4 p.m. Central, and Tony Francola is going to be on live, going to be telling you all about SP.kit. That's going to be a tough act to follow, but let's try it. So topics. So anybody heard anything cool? Anything worth talking about today? I struggle. I have to make my notes now during the workday, and it's so tough to find things to talk about. And I just don't know even what to say. I did see something on Twitter today, and this was something that was news to me. Maybe you guys already knew about this, but I didn't know about this. There's a speed test utility on Bing. Did you guys know that? Yeah. If you go to bing.com and type in speed test and hit enter, it does all the Bingy things. It gives you results and ads and all that. But there's a speed test utility built into the results page. You just hit the little start button. How awesome is that? So that is something that's near and dear to my heart. Partially because of recommendations from Trevor in the chat room and some other folks that I know, Liam Cleary and all that. I've been replacing some of my network gear at home. So a couple of months ago, I replaced my router with a dual WAN router which turns out I don't have set up correctly because it doesn't fail over. Topic for another time. But I noticed that when I replaced my router, I got better internet access. My old router had 100 megabit connection, and my cable modem was faster than 100 megabit. So as soon as I dropped in that new router that had a gigabit connection, my internet's got faster. I spent a lot of time at speedtest just looking at those dials. So for those of you, I know this is particular fun for Lori, that don't have great internet connection, allow me to amaze and confound you with my internet speeds. On a wired connection with my new router and all that, when I do a speed test from speedtest.net or from Bing, which is my new favorite way to do it, I get about 170 megabits down, about 30 megabits up. So that's pretty good. But then that same company, so I got my router is from Ubiquiti. So you can go out there, Ubiquiti, it's an Edge router Lite, I believe is the model. They also make Wi-Fi gear, and so I bought a new wireless access point. Had the same issue. All that was faster than my internet, or my internet connection was faster than my wireless. I put the new access point in. That's all faster. Spent a lot of time in speed tests. So that was good. I'm glad I was on Twitter today. I was glad I was on the internet because I learned a cool thing about the Bing. So bing.com, check for speed test. Yeah. So anything else? I talked about the speed test thing already. What was it? Oh, so in the chat room, they're talking about, yeah. So early this morning, I forget exactly what time, I'm going through my Instagrams and all that kind of stuff. And I'm on Twitter and I see a little tweet from @SharePoint. SharePoint 2016 RTM today. It's real, folks. It's a real little boy now. It's not a release candidate. It's not an IT Pro preview. It's an honest to goodness, real little boy, SharePoint 2016. The funniest thing about that was the tweet that announced SharePoint 2016 coming into the world was on blogs.office.com. There was such an onslaught of people clicking it, it immediately took blogs.office.com down. So I was in the middle of a particularly engaging Funny Panda video, and I missed the tweet by like a minute, and then I went in there and I couldn't bring it up because you guys had already killed it. So it was pretty funny. So it's all out there now. SharePoint 2016 is a real thing. This 2016 is a revolutionary version of SharePoint for a few reasons. One of them is it's the first version of on-prem SharePoint that was designed cloud first. All the previous versions of SharePoint were designed as an on-prem product and then wedged into the cloud, wedged into SharePoint Online. This is the first version that is backwards. SharePoint 2016 on-prem is now a culmination of the last 3 or 4 years of SharePoint Online, mixing things in and all that. So that is one significant piece about SharePoint 2016, and we're going to talk a little bit later about how that works. Another important thing about SharePoint 2016 is of the last 4 versions of SharePoint, because this is, I forget which version we're on now, 6, 7, something like that. They all kind of blend together for me. But SharePoint 2016 is the first version out of the last 4 where I will not have a child in the year that SharePoint was released. So my first child was born in 2007. My next child was born in 2010. My third child was born in 2013. I can tell you in no unequivocal terms, there will not be any SharePoint children in the Klindt household this year. But so that's something significant about SharePoint 2016. No Klindt offspring this time. But so all kinds of great stuff, all kinds of fun things. So if you go to the blogs.office.com link that I linked in the chat room, and of course it's down below, just a whole flurry of stuff. Microsoft has been doing a great job preparing for this launch day, so their stuff is all ready to go. One of the main things is Project Server is now in SharePoint Server, and Foundation is gone. So I've got toddklindt.com/20s or SP2010 builds has all the SharePoint 2010 builds for Foundation and Server and all that. toddklindt.com/SP2013 builds has all the build numbers and patches and all that for SharePoint 2013. Again, Foundation, Server, Project, Office Web Apps, all that. SharePoint 2016, toddklindt.com/SP2016 builds, now has one link because Foundation is gone and Project is built into Server. So it's a lot easier for you to get the right thing and patch the right thing. So that's one of them that you need to keep track of if you're using the project and you're looking at your upgrade scenarios and all that. project server now upgrades into SharePoint Server. I mentioned some of the other products. Foundation is gone. Office Web Apps is still around, though it's now called the Office Online Server, or OOS. Microsoft. Anyway, the Office Online Server, OOS, is not out yet. It will be out soon. Hopefully, I think the expectation is that we will see it before too long, but it is not out yet. And I think they'll probably try to keep the same cadence that they do with 2013 in releasing it at the same time. Daniel Glenn in the chat room mentions that maybe OOS could refer to out of stock, and that's why we don't have any. They're refilling the Office Online Server right now. They're hoping to have some new stock in a couple of weeks or so. Lots of rain checks, though. Go ahead and go out there now. They'll get you your OOS download any day now. So now that we're in this brave new world of everything being on the web and all that, RTM, the release to manufacturing, is sort of a weird phrase now. RTM used to mean that Microsoft was done with the product and they were shipping it to the manufacturing. The people that are going to press the CDs and DVDs and all that. Well, we don't do that anymore. We don't install SharePoint off of that anymore. So RTM is sort of a nebulous term. There is a trial that you can download now, and that link is on that same blog post, but I'll put it in the chat room just so it seems like I'm doing some work here. Oh, I love this. So Microsoft has their own short naming service at aka.ms, and this link is aka.ms get SharePoint 2016. That's good, guys. Well done. That's clever. I like that. Get SharePoint 2016. Easy to remember. So you can go out there and get it now. It is only a trial now. You can't get licenses for it because it's not GA or generally available. The generally available date is May 4th, and that date is coming up, and then you'll be able to go to your volume license site and get license keys and all that and upgrade your demo to a full version. Also on that day, Microsoft is having an online event with a much less clear URL. I'm not going to try to say that for you folks that are on audio. Check the links below. But it is a free event, a free online event, talking about SharePoint 2016. It's going to have a bunch of things. I'm trying to find the way they describe this here. The Future of SharePoint virtual event. That's what they're calling it. So it is May 4th, starts at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think they might mean daylight time, but anyway, Pacific time, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, and there's going to be Jeff Teeper's going to be there talking about SharePoint, and then they're going to have a bunch of sessions that you'll be able to see. And so that is the Future of SharePoint, May the 4th, Star Wars Day. It's awesome that they RTM'd on Pi Day and they're GAing on Star Wars Day. Well done, Microsoft. You are knocking this one out of the park. I love it. But you can sign up for that event for free. I've already signed up for that and find out all the new fun things about SharePoint 2016 when it comes out. So very excited about all this. I've been playing with SharePoint 2016 for many months, as you guys have, and there's a lot of new functionality there. Expect some blog posts from me about some of my favorite pieces of SharePoint 2016. Now we're past the point of wondering when we're going to start implementing SharePoint 2016 and actually talking about it and planning it inside of our companies. And this is, now we can start those discussions. So a couple things to keep in mind. You're going to need some time to test this. I assume that Microsoft is going to follow their standard practice of putting out patches once a month. So Patch Tuesday every month, I assume we'll have 2010, 2013, and now SharePoint 2016 patches. So the whole idea of waiting till Service Pack 1 gets a little fuzzy. Most SharePoint shops don't do that anyway, but if that's part of your planning, we're not going to put this into RTM until Service Pack 1. Who knows when that's going to be? But it's time now to get the RTM bits, get them in your lab. You've got the demo key. The demo key is good for several months, so you're in good shape there. All the things you've been practicing the last few months, now is the time to test them all out. All the functionality, all the user acceptance things, all that you've been doing, now is when it really counts. And so now is when you need to start setting timelines for your upgrade to SharePoint 2016 from 2013. Again, remember that there is no in-place upgrade or anything, so this is going to be like the upgrade from 2010 to 2013 was. You're going to build up a new separate farm, move your SharePoint 2013 databases over to it, content databases and service app databases, and upgrade them that way. So now is the time to start bringing those databases over, upgrading them, testing them, seeing how they work, all that. My recommendation for folks for when you should upgrade, start planning now. We're looking at months in the future, obviously. You're going to want to let this thing bake out for 2 or 3 months to see if there's any huge problems. That's also the time you're going to be doing your testing. And then as you're doing your testing, start getting a feel for how long this upgrade is going to take you. And then, plan out from that. There's a lot of things. I've done some upgrade classes on this one. And I think I'm doing another one at SP TechCon here in June. So if you're going to be out there, go to that. Another thing to keep in mind is the hybrid scenarios in 2016. SharePoint 2016 is just hybrid from day one. That's what Microsoft wants you to know. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next segment. But anything that you have in hybrid, so if you've already done the moving OneDrive for Business out to Office 365, any of those things, you don't have to upgrade. You don't have to worry about those things. So now you can connect your SharePoint 2016 farm to the same Office 365 farm, and everything's just there. That's one of the great benefits of having things out in the cloud. So if you're in the process of doing that now, Jack in the chat room's talking about that. He migrated some stuff to Office 365. The more things you have in Office 365, the fewer things you have to upgrade on-prem. So as you're working your timelines out, start thinking about that. Another thing to keep in mind is that the Auto SP installer, Brian LaLansette's baby, already supports SharePoint 2016. Now, I can feel Brian's pain on this. Brian's on vacation this week. And so he's not going to be able to download the RTM bits and double check everything. But I've seen at least one person on Twitter mention that they have installed SharePoint 2016 with Auto SP installer and everything works great. While I enjoy installing SharePoint in all of its varieties, I love them all the same, the Auto SP installer is a good idea and provides you a few benefits. Number one, it's immediate documentation. If anybody wants to know how your farm's set up, you've got an XML file you can show them, and that's it. Nobody likes to do documentation, though next week we're going to show you a fun way to do documentation, but that is a great way to see exactly how your farms are. And for those of you that have test farms and user acceptance testing farms and production farms and all that, automating your installs with something like Auto SP installer works like a champ for making sure that all these environments are exactly the same. It makes things a lot easier for you. So if that's something that you've considered, now is the time to try that. Get your Auto SP installer, gigantic, 3,000 line XML file. Get that thing honed down and try all that. And Trevor Seward also wants to mention that the unattend.txt is also an option that works for farm installs, all that. So we're gonna have some install blog posts and all that coming up. But now is the time to look all of this. So this is very exciting stuff. I look forward to getting some blog posts out there and telling you guys about all the great SharePoint 2016 things that you've had. By all means, if you have experiences, things like that, hit me up on Twitter. I do already have all the SharePoint 2016 patch things out there. So toddklindt.com/SP2016 builds was updated immediately this morning. There is a wiki page for the RTM, so you can go out there, and if there are issues or whatever, I'm happy to add them out there. We're all in this together, and so the thing that trips you up will probably trip somebody else up, and if we can get that out there sooner, then it makes it easier for your fellow admin. So expect to hear a lot about SharePoint 2016 in the coming few shows. All right. So the next thing that happened, I was bouncing around the internet today. There's just a lot of fun stuff on the internet. I don't know if you guys have discovered, there's a lot of fun things. But one of the things that I discovered was an update to the PowerShell scripts used to configure hybrid search for SharePoint. Put that link in the chat room. So my buddy, Neil Hodgkinson from Microsoft, one of the smartest guys that I know, and he also likes the same kind of music that I do, so we kind of got that thing going for us. But I think that's kind of his baby. He released that. I wanted to bring your guys' attention to that before SharePoint 2016 was RTM today, but now it makes for a much better story. If you're using the hybrid search in SharePoint 2013 or 2016, these are the scripts that will configure it for you. And so what these scripts do is they set up the server-to-server trust and all those kind of things. It's all stuff you can do manually, but obviously it's a lot better to do it with PowerShell. These scripts have been around since the first blog post that Neil had about the hybrid search, but they've continued to improve them. As more people like me, I screwed some stuff up, and he was able to help me through that. But there are more things. So if you've got old versions of these scripts, don't let that dissuade you from downloading the new versions. These were updated just a couple of days ago. But a couple of things that were added to this particular version of the script is that the script now checks to see if you have an existing server-to-server trust. And if it does, it reuses that, which is nice. Teresa Wilson, better known as the scripting wife, she's in the chat room right now, and she thinks you should do this because everything's better with PowerShell. I can't argue with that. That is a true statement. Everything is better with PowerShell. I don't know why you would do this with anything other than PowerShell. But now the script has been updated to check for your existing trust. Before, it would try to set up a new trust when there was already a trust, and then you couldn't trust the trust because it wasn't the trust you trusted. It got very confusing, but that has now all been fixed. So you can use that script for that. The other thing, so I talked to Neil this morning about this and said, hey, I saw the new scripts. Anything else you would like me to pass on when I talk about this at my podcast this afternoon? And the other thing that he mentioned was he wanted people to know that you should not reset the search index from inside of central admin like you're used to doing. Because of the way that the crawl and the index and all that, the on-prem and the off-prem, you will do some bad things if you do the reset the index from central admin. And so he asked me to pass on to you all that if you need to clear your Office 365 index, you kind of got to do it the old school way. You need to delete your content sources and do a crawl that sends the word up to online and says delete these things from the index. The reason for that is if you do the reset index, it orphans the index up in the cloud. Then you tried to make another index and there's already an index there. Everything, the wheels just fall right off. So don't do that as you're playing with this. So again, we've got these new scripts. And this is cool. One of the things about the hybrid search, it worked with SharePoint 2016. SharePoint 2016 wasn't RTM before about 6 hours ago. And it worked with SharePoint 2013, but it was only in preview. As of today, I think it's the real deal. SharePoint 2016 is in RTM. Office 365 is in RTM. So now you can start planning production workloads around this hybrid search. It's another one of those functions that I think is amazing. Microsoft really knocked it out of the park as they're trying to make this hybrid identity story good. This is one of the things that really makes this idea that you can have one search center that has your on-prem and online search results all in the same spot. No federated windows or any of that kind of stuff. Everybody living in harmony. And so I think this is definitely something you might not want to implement it right away in production. There are some data sovereignty issues, what's in the cloud now, but you need to be looking into it. I think it's good functionality. It's the way we're gonna go. It's a thing. It's gonna happen. But I think now that SharePoint 2016 is RTM, we've got these new scripts that fix some of these problems. Now it's ready for prime time. It's a real deal. Another great. This has just been a good week for SharePoint folks. Another thing that I get asked about a lot, especially working for a hosting company, and a hosting company that not only does SharePoint, but does the other Microsoft products, Azure, notably. So Rackspace does SharePoint on our own private cloudy things. Rackspace does Office 365, so we manage Office 365 tenants and get all that thing stuff. We also do Azure and what we call Microsoft Private Cloud, which is Hyper-V on our machines that you dedicated machines for your Hyper-V. We do all those things. And so we kind of have our fingers everywhere. We've definitely moved to the spot where our goal is to have the best platform for whatever the customer needs. And if that's Office 365, that's great. If that's AWS, that's great, whatever. We're the cloud company now. But because of that, we get asked and have for many months now what the story for SharePoint on-prem installed on Azure virtual machines is. And that is, so it's not SharePoint Online with capital S and capital O, but it's SharePoint installed on Azure virtual machines. So it's the same install you would do on-prem or the same install you would, that we do for you in our private cloud, but instead on Azure. And Microsoft, in my opinion, has been kind of cagey about that. They've never come out and said, we do support it, we don't support it. They had documents that said, you should really be using Azure for your SharePoint test environments. and they would say, you should really be using Azure for your SharePoint failover environments. But they really came short of saying it's ready for production loads. So last week, I was looking at some of these documents that they have, and one of them is the Microsoft Azure Architectures for SharePoint 2013 document. I will put this in the chat room for your guys' viewing pleasure. And it's got all the things that we've been seeing before. Here's how you hook up Azure AD. If you got this, here's how you say all the things that we've had before. But they added a little line, and I'm gonna read this one. I'm gonna quote it for you and see if it sends the same tingle down your spine as it sends down my spine. It says about a quarter to a third of the way down, and I quote, if using a cloud platform is important for your business requirements, consider a standard or customized implementation of SharePoint 2013 hosted in Azure Infrastructure Services. That sounds like to me, we support production environments in Azure. That's exactly the way that I took it. That's the way that I'm spinning it. So that's a good sign. I feel like that means if you've got SharePoint installed in Azure and you've got problems, you can call Microsoft and they will support you. Now, they follow that up with another line that says SharePoint solutions are much easier to support in Azure than any other non-native Microsoft public cloud platforms. Microsoft, now come on. I thought we were a thing. I thought Rackspace and Mac, I get it. You had to say that. I understand. I would argue that SharePoint 2013 is easy to support on our platform as well as Azure, but let's not split hairs here. The important piece in that is that they now, I would say, tacitly support SharePoint 2013 in production on Azure infrastructure. And with the previous story that we talked about, with SharePoint 2016 being out, if you've got Azure virtual machines sitting around looking for something to do, you can rest assured that SharePoint 2016 in production scenarios will likely be supported there. So that was all good news. So the last few days have just been a whirlwind of great news for us SharePoint folks. SharePoint on Azure for production is okay. Here's some new scripts. Oh my God, here's a new version of SharePoint. It has been a good week. Excuse me. The last thing that I wanted to mention, and this was something that's been out for a while, but it came up in conversation. I may have even linked it in here before. But again, as Rackspace, we've kind of been evolving to support Office 365 and support Azure and all these things. Now the conversations with customers become a little more complicated because we need to find out what they want to do and what solution's best for them. We don't just have the small box. And so one of the things that we use now is the Office 365 service comparison worksheet. You can find that on TechNet. Links in the show notes. Show notes are at toddklindt.com/podcast284, all the links and all that. And at no extra charge, a picture of my smiling face at the top. That's all in the show notes there. But this Office 365 service comparison is an Excel spreadsheet that they've got some BI tools wrapped around where you can compare Office 365 to on-prem, to standalone installs, things like that, and figure out which features work where and how. And you can even drill down to specific features, like if you've got Office 365, the kiosk plan, if you've got Exchange Online, all that. So it's a really great way as you're trying to figure out what your company wants to do and what tools they need. You can go into this, the service comparison tool and find out which version of SharePoint makes the most sense for you. And since it's got like this worksheet on the back end, they can update it in the background and it just keeps getting better and better. All right. So I had other things to talk about, but again, I've been very conscientious. I'm trying to keep this thing as close to 30 minutes as possible. I respect your guys' time. I don't want to waste it. So we're going to cut this off at 30 minutes, but trust me, there was more to talk about this week. We'll catch up next week after Tony's thing. But we also have to save some time for everybody's favorite part of the podcast, shameless self-promotion, the reason that most of you are here. Not a lot of big changes since last week's shameless self-promotion. In 10 days, a week and a half, this many days, I'm going to be doing a free webcast with the folks at Petri. You can go to petri.com/webinars, and that's Petri, Petri.com. And this is a webinar that I'm doing with the folks at Veeam, and it's about SharePoint server backup and recovery. So I'm going to talk for like a half an hour on what the out-of-the-box tools do, what backup recovery means, what you should do, what you're trying to accomplish, what tools get you there, and then the folks at Veeam are going to take over the last half and talk about what their tool does. So that is March 24th at noon Central Time. It is free, worth every penny. I'm giving up lunch to do this for you guys. So go out to petri.com/webinars, managing SharePoint server backup and recovery like a pro. Sign up for that. Sign up twice. Let the folks at Petri know what a big deal I am and how much you guys love me. Sign up for that and we'll talk about SharePoint backup and recovery. And then in a month, I will be speaking at Dev Intersection in Orlando, Florida. You can go to devintersection.com and sign up for that. I'll be doing some sessions there on identity, and I forget what the other one is. I really ought to put that in my notes. But you can sign up if you go to devintersection.com and sign up. Don't forget to use promo code Klindt, KLINDT. And that will give you $50 off your registration. That's $50 right in your pocket. That is immediate. You can see it. It's right there. And it also gives me $50. That's good. I like $50. Not as much as I like $51, but I like $50. But the more important piece of it is they've got like a leaderboard going in the back, and whoever signs up the most promo codes gets bragging rights. And honestly, I really want to rub it in those other guys' face. So sign up with promo code Klindt. In the chat room, Lori is asking who's in the lead. I have not seen any emails go out to everybody to see who's in the lead, so I don't know. I assume it's me. I don't know. And it's funny because a bunch of conferences do this. SP TechCon does it every year. And I never really participate in it, but I decided this time I was going to jump into this one. So don't make me regret my decision to pimp my promo code, to sell my soul to the promo code devils. Go up to devintersection.com and sign up and promo code Klindt, and I will see you out there. If you're in there, if you're going to go to Dev Intersection, and I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you go to Dev Intersection, I'm only going to be there like on Monday and Tuesday. I had a prior engagement here Wednesday at home that I needed to rush back for. But if you're going to be out there, for goodness sakes, come find me. Obviously, I'll be in my sessions. You'll be able to find me there. I'll be wandering around just everywhere I can. But come introduce yourself. Tell me who you are. Tell me how you use SharePoint. I'm a pretty friendly guy. I love to chat, so come look me up. And then in June, we'll call it 3 months from now. Yeah. 3 months from now sounds good. I will be at SP TechCon. That is out in Boston, June 27th through the 30th. I believe they have also told me which sessions I have done. I will be doing, and I have not put that in my notes either. But rest assured, they will be spectacular in both content and delivery. All you could hope they would be. But I'll be at SP TechCon. And once again, if you're at SP TechCon, you can go to you can look me up. If you're not, rush out to sptechcon.com. I think they do the promo code thing. Write my name in there when you sign up for SP TechCon, and I'm sure fame and riches will follow for both of us if you do that. So I see that I'm a little over. I'm at 32 minutes, something like that. Thanks, everybody. Chat room, stick around. I'll be in the chat room for a while, and we can talk about all things SharePoint. Again, next week, podcast 285, Tony Francola. Don't miss it. You're going to want to catch it live, 4 o'clock Central Time. And if you don't listen to the live feed, if you don't watch it, you can find it on YouTube at my channel, Todd Klindt Netcast, or go to toddklindt.com/podcast, and that will link it up, and you can watch it live. So thanks, everybody. Thanks to the hooligans in the chat room. You have not disappointed. To everybody else, I will see you next week.